Am I the a-hole for telling my son that if he doesn't want to work, he doesn't get the benefits of my labor? My son, 21 male, dropped out of college at the end of his last semester in December. His grades had been failing for almost a year and a half, so it was pretty much either drop out or get kicked out. My wife and I had paid for his first 2 years completely and given him extra spending money each month so that he could concentrate on school instead of having to work. We also made him sign up with a school counselor and got him a therapist about 18 months ago because we were worried his mental health could be a contributing factor. We later found out that he had been skipping counseling and therapy sessions and skipping a lot of classes. We had a conversation about it with him, and he went on a rant about how he doesn't want to spend 40 to 50 years of his life toiling away at some job he doesn't like in order to make some boss more money. He said that work is just a social construct designed to keep the masses down, and that humans aren't designed to sit in a cubicle for 40 hours a week then die. When my son told my wife and I that he dropped out, my wife immediately allowed him to come back home. That was about 3 months ago. Since then, all he does is sit on his computer. He's maybe left the house a dozen times. He refuses to get a job and tells us that his plan is to live the van life. I worked a union blue-collar job for years to support my family, and I'll be damned if I'm going to let my son crap all over my hard work. A couple weeks ago, I got home from work exhausted and he made a remark about me breaking my back for the man. I told him that my job gave him the opportunity to go to college, and he chose to squander it. It turned into a fight where I let out a lot of frustration on him. I told him he either gets a job or he no longer gets to take advantage of my hard work since he seems to think so little of it. I told him I would remove him from our family phone plan, cancel our internet, no longer let him eat our food, and give him a tent so that he can sleep in the backyard. He yelled at me that I'm being an a-hole, and that those are basic human necessities, and I can't deprive him of those. I told him that if he needs those things, then he can freaking work for them like the rest of us, or go find a van and get out. He hasn't spoken to me since, but my wife says I was too hard on him and that this transition has obviously been difficult for him. I told her I am tired of coddling him, and I will not allow him to blatantly disrespect me in my own house, while also taking advantage of all the things I have worked hard to give him. Now, my wife is upset with me too, because she thinks I'm being unreasonable to expect our son to at least do something with his life to contribute if he is going to stay with us. At this point, I don't care if he lives in the backyard and makes a little garden back there to grow his own food. At least that would show some initiative on his part. Now for the top comments. Not stay home. He needs to grow up. Some folks, growing up happens easy. Some folks, it happens hard. Ideals are fantastic, but you can't eat them. Not stay home. Well, these basic human necessities don't look like a social construct now, do they? It's one thing to screw over an awful employer or a biased legal system, or to just freaking hate the necessity of what the economics of specialization have driven us to. It's a whole other thing to screw over your parents. Not stay home. If he wants to embrace the van life, he needs to leave and find a van life. Otherwise, he is as bad as a boss profiteering off someone else's labor. His ideals aren't wrong, but his actions and expectations are. You have worked hard to afford him these privileges, and so are entitled to withdraw them if you feel he isn't earning them. He has reached adulthood, and by your account, you've given him all. He also needs to know most van lifers work. Some of them work a lot. But they put stuff on YouTube and have 1 million subscribers. That's so easy. I can do that. Lol, one of my favorite van lifers YouTube. And have been super upfront in what it's taken to get to where they are. Just years and years of work. And they kept their jobs for a very long time when they started out. Not stay home. I have a couple comments here. Your wife is his enabler. He feels comfortable being so free from the man because he knows he has a safety net. Secondly, you can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. You can give him all the tools, counseling, and opportunities to go to college, but if he doesn't want to, he won't do well. Finally, life is what happens when you're busy making plans. Perhaps the best thing you can do is kick him out so that he doesn't have the luxury to be so idealistic. Maybe he will get a taste of independence and the reward of doing things for himself. Next story. Am Am I the a-hole for thinking my daughter shouldn't pay rent? I have been a stay-at-home mom my whole marriage. My husband pays the bills. I keep house and raise my little ones. I also do things like money management and our taxes because I have an accounting degree. My oldest daughter calls me because she just recently moved in with her fiancé, and he told her she has to pay half of rent and utilities. He makes a lot more than her because she's working part-time, so she has time to plan her dream wedding. Both his parents work, and I know his mom makes more than his dad. My daughter is Sarah, 24, and I was thrown back when she realized she had to split all of the bills in the marriage and pay for things like her wedding dress. It's put a damper in our wedding planning. I tried talking to her fiancé, Luke, 32, saying his family situation was unique since his mom was making more. He rebuffed me, saying it's unrealistic to think he would work, and Sarah could just spend all of her free time wedding planning. He said she has a degree, and she should get a full-time job. Sarah and him both went to school for accounting, and that's how he met her, was at her internship. He works about 60 hours a week. And I explained that with wedding planning, asking her to work that much is way too much on a girl her age. His mother is feeding him the new wave feminism, and I don't think it's a good life balance for this young couple. His mom is feeding my daughter that in this world, you have to work hard and have tough love for your kids. Sarah called crying because her mother-in-law yelled at her for being a gold digger, and Sarah has moved back in with her best friend. My daughter is saying I gave her bad advice and now Luke wants to call off the wedding and wants his ring back. She's blaming it on me, but I think Luke shouldn't have asked my daughter to pay half of his bills on top of wedding planning. You're the a-hole as you gave terrible advice. Your wedding is not a valid excuse to not work, and plenty of people her age work those sort of hours. I'm not surprised that he called off the wedding, as no one in their right mind would want to deal with someone who acts so entitled. Exactly. The way Opie said his mom is feeding him the new wave of feminism literally says a lot about Opie. Her idea is the one that isn't a good balance for any couple. And Opie, yes, in this world you gotta work to earn money in order to live. You can't just mooch off another. There is no more blue is for boys and pink is for girls. Your daughter is capable enough to get a job and support herself. And if she continues to listen to your terrible advice, she'll probably end up alone. And if your daughter can't handle a job and wedding planning at the age of 25, she ain't ready for having kids or getting married either. You're the a-hole. Too much for a girl her age? What are you implying? She's too young to take on the responsibilities? If that's the case, then she shouldn't be getting married in the first place. That line cracked me up. She's 24, not 14. And shocking though it may be to Opie, plenty of women work full-time and plan weddings at the same time. It's put a damper in our wedding planning. It may have been a slip of the tongue, but it said everything. This isn't your wedding. This isn't your marriage. Their family dynamics are not yours. You're asking them to go by your lifestyle, not develop their own. If your daughter is living with Luke, it's not solely Luke's rent. Let's go ready. You're the a-hole. She needs to work full-time. I genuinely can't comprehend having the mindset that I need to work part-time so I can plan this party. What? Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for sitting back and doing nothing when mom told my wife that she'd take us to court for grandparents' right? This situation is a bit of a mess. I'll just mention the relevant conflict at hand. So, my wife Liz and I have been married for 7 years. We have preschool-aged kids, and because we currently live in the same city as my parents, mom would take the kids while my wife and I work. Liz is the one with a much larger income, and she got an even better job opportunity that is requiring us to move to another city. I agreed, since I could easily find a job in my field in the city we're moving to. But after my family heard we were selling the house to move, hell broke loose. Sunday, Mom and Liz got into a huge fight because Liz told Mom we'll move away and hire a babysitter for the kids so she's no longer needed. Mom said she doesn't want her grandkids moving away. Even said we should let the kids live at her house while we move. Liz laughed at her and Mom lost it, basically saying that Liz was an ungrateful witch and that her grandkids moving will only happen over her dead body. They began exchanging harsher words, and Liz snapped and told Mom to butt out of private matters that don't concern her, and said that she had no right to decide things regarding the kids. Mom firmly told her she was dead wrong and proceeded to tell her that she, as an involved grandmother, knows her rights and she will be taking Liz and me to court to ensure she still gets to see her grandkids. Liz was in shock. She looked to the left and saw me sitting there not saying or doing anything. She told me to check my mom, but I told her she was being unfair to Mom and that Mom had to feel upset because she will no longer be able to see her grandchildren. I honestly told Liz that she was a bit selfish to not consider my mom's feelings and her crucial presence in Kid's life first. Liz started arguing with me, saying she couldn't believe I didn't stand behind her and defend her after hearing Mom saying she'd get the court involved. I said Mom was upset and cannot be blamed for her reaction. Liz started yelling at me, calling me unsupportive and an enabler, then went home with the kids, insisting my family is my problem and I should handle it. Although this whole moving thing was her idea. Situation hasn't been resolved and Liz and Mom are getting more intense in their fights. I choose to stay out of it because both have valid arguments. But Liz has called me awful for not siding with her after seeing how Mom spoke to her and being okay with the fact that Mom was willing to cause us issues in court. Am I the a-hole? I get that Liz wants my support, but I feel like Mom has been punished through no fault of her own after being a loving grandmother to my kids. Now for the comments. You're the a-hole. Your mom threatened to take your family to court so she can get custody of the kids, and she wants them to live with her. That is a disproportionate reaction to being told that someone is moving. Are you okay with moving to a new city? Sounds like you are. Why would you ever let anyone threaten your wife with court for doing something incredibly beneficial for your family? Why would you let someone threaten you instead of offering to get on a plane to see you? You're the a-hole. Your mom is threatening your family, and she could very well actually gain custody of the kids depending on how much and how long she takes care of them for. OMG, you're the a-hole OP. Your wife and children should be your first priority always, not your mother's feelings over moving. Insisting my family is my problem but I should handle it, although this whole moving thing was her idea. It may have been her idea, but you agreed to it. If you had an issue with moving, you should have had that conversation with your wife. Agreeing with it to your wife's face and then letting your mom do the dirty work of fighting her about it is cowardly and passive-aggressive. The fact that you are continuing to sit there like a bump on a log while your relatives harass your wife is failing hardcore as a spouse. Get your mother out of your marriage or you won't have a marriage. You're the a-hole. You're the a-hole. You married and had kids with Liz, not your mother. Are you really okay with your mom threatening to take your children? No, I'm not. But I do get that she was upset and probably didn't mean what she said in the moment of rage. But I told Liz that it's better that we solve this peacefully and try to get on my mom's good side by maybe reaching a compromise, though Mom is completely against moving away. Why does your wife need to compromise when your mom is the one that escalated the threatening to sue you? Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for calling out my husband's favoritism? My husband Tom, 37 male, and I, 33 female, have been married for 7 years, and we have 2 kids. Sammy 3, Nora 5. He was married before me, and had a son, Teddy, who passed on from chronic illness at 4. So far, our family has been pretty stable, meaning no fights or disagreements. Though I have complaints about some things Tom does. This might sound insensitive, but it treats Teddy different than our kids. Like he has a ton of framed pictures of Teddy on his office wall and desk, but none for our kids. He also has pillows and blankets with Teddy's name on them while not doing the same for Sammy and Nora. His argument was that this is his only way of showing love and remembering Teddy since he can't see or touch him. While Sammy and Nora are here and he shows them affection in a physical form like doing bonding activities and such. We kind of moved on from this issue until I accidentally came across a whole journal he has that was dedicated to Teddy. I'd read some of what was written, and it had details of some moments in Teddy's life. I felt sad for 2 reasons. 1, because of how much heartache Tom had experienced, and 2, the fact that he never thought of writing about his special moments with Sammy and Nora. I gently brought it up to him, and he got upset and tried to say the same thing about how he adores all 3 children, but in different ways. I said it still hurts because while Sammy and Nora are still young, what if they come across something like that when they're older? and realized that dad didn't love them as much as his eldest kid. I said this reek of favoritism. But he said we weren't even having this conversation, nor should I have called him out on his alleged favoritism after I disrespected his privacy and read his private thoughts. I argued that it is what it is, and he should start considering including the kids now and not wait till they're, God forbid, gone to show them love. He said I should be ashamed of myself for implying he doesn't love his young children and for making him guilty only because he suffered a tragedy and was finally at peace with it. I said I was sorry he felt this way, but he told me to stop talking and leave the room. I walked out and he started crying. The kids then entered the room and started comforting him. So far, we haven't been on good terms. I keep trying to stay calm and collected, but he's being cold towards me, making me feel like I'm at fault here. I want to know if I am the a-hole. You're the a-hole. What is wrong with you? Calm down. The guy lost one of his kids. That child is literally not here anymore. Pictures and a journal is his way of coping with sadness. It does not mean he loves your kids less or favors Teddy over them. Teddy is dead. Take a step back and just stop being so self-centered. Unless he ignores his other two children completely, you are so out of line and instead of being supportive, you are being a nay. So I agree that Opie is the a-hole, but I do wonder what his other two kids are gonna think when all they see is Teddy and not them in Daddy's life. That doesn't excuse Opie in any way at all. I just want the poor guy to make sure that he's dealing with everything in a safe and healthy way. My heart breaks for him. You're the a-hole and huge. My God, how can you not understand and let the man grieve and process this grief in any way, shape, or form he needs to? Teddy's gone. You don't have to make some sort of fake competition for receiving love from your husband. Read a book about losing a child or something so that you can help the man instead of making his trauma worse. Unfortunately, yes, it may be worth updating knowledge on grievance and jealousy OP. Also, it's likely OP is now pushing the husband away. Why would he want to be with a woman that can't properly respect his privacy and past? I would apologize, buy him something to say sorry, and change how you are acting. Update. Am I the a-hole for taking away my wife's access to our money? Original story. I have been married to my wife Ashley for 7 years. I am the only one that works, and Ashley spends her time volunteering at a charity she started. I am fine with this, as I make enough for both of us. In financial decisions, we have equal say. I will admit that I am the numbers nerd of the relationship, so I do the budget and handle our investments. My wife has equal input into the budget, and we both have to agree on it. Like many people, we are saving for retirement and a couple of other financial goals. Ashley's sister and her family are going through a lot of financial issues at the moment. My brother-in-law lost his job, and my sister-in-law is reaching out to my wife for help. They're asking for us to cover their monthly expenses. I said no, that while we have some discretionary money, we don't have that much. Both my wife and I get fun money to spend however we wish each month. So I told my wife that I would match whatever amount of her fun money she wants to give her sister from my fun money. My wife doesn't want to do that as she says that won't be enough money. She wants us to reduce the amount we are saving each month to help her sister. I refused. I do not want to jeopardize my family's future for her sister's present. Ashley was very unhappy with my answer, but I refused to change my mind. I found out last week that my wife gave her sister money out of our general savings account. I was furious. To me, this is a complete betrayal of trust. I confronted her, and her reply was that I forced her to go behind my back by being unreasonable. I was angry. I ended up going to the bank and opening up new accounts in my name only. I moved the balances to my new account. I left in enough money for the expenses that she typically pays according to our budget. Things like groceries, her gas, etc., as well as her fun money. I did not leave her without access to any money, but I did leave her with access only to money that she is supposed to spend according to the budget we both agreed to. I went home and told her what I had done, and now she's accusing me of financially mistreating her. I pointed out that she's the one that took advantage of my trust, not the other way around. That it is on her to prove to me that she's worthy of my trust because after what she did, I don't trust her anymore. She said that if that was the case, she should just leave, that she wasn't going to be treated as a child. I told her to leave then, because I wasn't going to give her the opportunity to steal from me again when it is clear she isn't even sorry for what she did. She left to stay with her sister. I believe I'm completely justified for what I have done. She's the one that broke our agreement. Did I take it too far, though? This was the first time she ever did anything like this. Did I let anger get the best of me? Am I the a-hole for taking away her access to the money? Now for the top comments before reading the update. Not the a-hole. You nailed it there at the end. She stole from you. No excuse. My husband and I have similar financial agreement, and I simply cannot imagine doing what your wife did. Such a betrayal. So she has gone to stay with her sister, the one who's broke? So now there's another mouth to feed in that house. She's going to essentially be the sole provider for that household out of her own money? I think she'll be back. The question is whether Opie will want her back. Betrayal is exactly the word. Opie made a reasonable suggestion for the amount of financial help they could offer her sister's family, but that wasn't good enough. She stole from the person she's supposed to be in love with, who has supported her financially for the duration of the marriage, and then even had the nerve to claim financial mistreatment when Opie moved to protect his hard-earned assets. He is definitely not the a-hole. Actually, that's a good point. Will sister even want her now that she doesn't have the seemingly unlimited funds of support as monthly sister might have been hoping for? Will wife be out with sister and Opie? Hopefully we get an update. I came here ready to thank you were an a-hole from the title, but I think that what your wife did was awful. You said you would contribute the same amount of fund money as she did to her sister, doubling the loan effectively, and your wife went behind your back to unilaterally take joint funds, so her fund money won't be affected. You are not an a-hole. Your wife is being an unreasonable mooch. Normally, I hate how quick Reddit is to tell people to dump their partners. But if you don't have kids, now is a great time to consider whether you can handle a lifetime of this person and his behavior. Exactly. If the wife wanted to give a larger amount of money to her sister, then she could, I don't know, get a job? Not an a-hole. She was the person who was being unreasonable here. You did not mistreat her financially. I am not sure if this was taken too far. It sounds entirely reasonable for what you have written. I guess you need to ask yourself what you will do if she doesn't compromise at all. That is the big question. I love her, but I can't see myself staying with someone I can't trust. Now for the update. Well, it looks like the posters that commented that my marriage is doomed were correct. First, after reading the posts, I agreed that it was not fair that I had access to our savings and she did not, even though she gave some away without my consent. Following the advice of several posters, I contacted my bank and I found out that the account could be changed, so that while both of us could deposit money, it would take both our signatures to take money out of the account. This would give her the same control over the accounts that I had by putting them under my name. I contacted Ashley to let her know that I would put the money back in the joint account if we switched the account to require both of our signatures. She said no, that just showed that I didn't trust her. I told her I didn't, that she had taken money without my consent, so of course I didn't trust her. She refuses to change the account, and I refuse to give her unrestricted access. So right now, I am still the only one with access to the money. We also tried marriage counseling, another suggestion that posters brought up multiple times. The counselor asked both of us to say what we thought was wrong with our relationship. Ashley said that I had mistreated her by taking away her access to money. I said that Ashley had broken my trust by giving away money without my consent. It took a few sessions, but it's because pretty clear that we just weren't going to see things the same way. I wasn't going to commit to supporting her sister's family, and she refused to see giving them money without my consent as a breach of trust. The kicker came when it got to be close to the end of the month, and Ashley demanded, not ask, demanded that I put $3,000 in the account for her to use to pay her sister's bills. Her reasoning was, since she stayed there, we owe it to them. I told her she was ridiculous, and that if I wouldn't do that while we were together, why in the world would I do it now? She walked out of the session and told me that she wouldn't continue counseling until I agreed. I contacted a lawyer and filed for a legal separation, and will be filing for divorce. I found that I'm legally obligated to pay usual and ordinary bills of the household, but I am not required to pay any bills for where she moved to since she left voluntarily. So I'm doing what I am required to, including things like paying for her car insurance and her cell phone, but I'm not giving her access to any other funds. She has asked, More like demanded. I give her money as she will be getting it when we divorce, but I don't have a way of making sure whatever she is given comes out of the final settlement. So I'm refusing. I can't stress this enough. Obey your attorney. Do not take the high road or man up or any of the other BS things people are going to tell you that you need to do. You only need to obey your attorney. That's it. I'm sorry this happened to you. Best advice, and only advice to take. Do nothing more and nothing less. Do whatever your lawyer is telling you to do. It's too bad you don't have a prenup. Since she wasn't working, you might have to pay alimony. I hope things work out for you in the future. And I'm sorry you were taken advantage of like this. At least you know now how selfish and self-absorbed she is. And that reality will bite her hard when she realizes she needs to get a job and support herself now. From a comment Opie made after he posted the original, alimony isn't a thing in the state. Thank goodness, I'd say. Meanwhile, sister-in-law is sitting back, rubbing her hands together, waiting for the divorce payout money she'll convince her sister to hand over to her. Opie's wife blew up her own comfy life for what exactly? What an idiot. She needs to wake up to her bad attitude. Helping her sister is one thing, but what she did and how she went about it are very entitled. I hope no kids are involved. Have you spoken to your sister-in-law and explained what her financial demands have cost? We do not have children, and I have not spoken to sister-in-law. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to let my stepson return home without punishment after he ruined my daughter's book collection? My biological 12-year-old daughter Susan likes to collect and read old children's books, and she's become an incredible reader. She had problems with reading and learning before, and we were advised to encourage her to read. And ever since she started reading, which she does regularly, her skills improved. She also reads to her 2-year-old sister every night. I have a 16-year-old stepson, Levi, who can be a hothead sometimes. We don't have a son-dad relationship, but I respect him and he respects me, though he can act quite mean and selfish towards me and his sisters. He'd throw away stuff that belongs to us over small arguments, and teases Susan for spending a lot of time to read, calling her grandma. My wife and I discussed his behavior and had conversations and agreed on punishments, but Levi would go to his dad's place whenever it causes troubles, then have his dad yell at me for wanting to discuss a suitable punishment. Then Levi comes home days later expecting me to let go of what he did every time. It's frustrating. I got a call at work from Susan saying Levi took her entire book collection and threw them in the pool after she refused to lend him and his friends her camera for a trip. My wife helped get them out, but they were wet and some were torn. It was horrific because some of those books are hard to get and meant a lot to Susan as a part of her life. I was so mad at Levi that I came home to have a conversation with my wife to decide on a punishment, but he already packed a small bag and went to his dad's. I asked my wife how could she let him basically run after doing this, and she said he called his dad and came to pick him up after Susan said that I was coming home to deal with a problem. I went to his dad's house and he refused to let me see him. I told him how Levi was hiding from consequences, and his dad tried to justify why Levi was acting out by blaming me for how me and Susan treat him. He even said he'd get CPS involved if I ever tried to punish him, because I'm not his dad, so I have no right. Adding that what Levi did was a reaction to my daughter being mean to him. He told me to leave, because Levi won't come home till I promise not to do anything about what he did and put it in writing. I told him Levi should stay here with him then. He's not gonna come back till he get a proper punishment. His dad argued it's his mom's house too, and called my wife. And she asked to let this go, and we'll figure out some way to resolve it. But I don't think it's fair for Susan to have her books ruined and Levi getting away with it. They're asking me to let it go. But this will only encourage Levi to do worse if I don't deal with it now. It's been 2 weeks and my in-laws say I was out of line for banning Levi from coming home and are telling me to step back. But I refused. Edit. Levi's dad thinks that because I'm not his bio dad, then I have no right to punish him for whatever he does in the house. In the past, his dad caused issues when I used to take Levi's electronics that his dad bought as punishment. Then I got talked out of punishing him every time he did something unacceptable, whether to me or his sisters. I've arranged for family therapy, but Levi's dad refused to let him go. I'd like to mention that my in-law said that Levi is willing to apologize to Susan, and so this should be enough to get this over with. But I kept saying no, and for that I'm being considered at fault. Now for the comments. Not today, Hull. If your wife refuses to punish her son, then you need to divorce her. Or at the very least, move into a separate house with Susan and your youngest daughter until Levi's out of the house for good. If your stepson continues to get away with hurting Susan with no consequence, Susan is going to suffer greatly. This is a hill to die on. Edit. To everyone telling me that divorce is a crazy suggestion and is an overreaction, I would like to point out my suggestion specified that he should do it if his wife refuses to punish her son. I'm not saying that he shouldn't try to convince his wife first. I'm saying that if she continues to go along with her ex-husband and refuse to punish her son when her son does horrible things to his daughter, then Opie needs to separate his daughters from the stepson. If Opie does manage to get his wife on his side, then no, obviously he shouldn't need to divorce his wife. Agree 100%. This is a hill to die on. Not just for the daughter, but also Levi. He needs not only the consequence of his action, but intervention from a trained professional. I'd start with selling everything he has at your house and using the money to start replacing her books. A-Books is a good website for purchasing hard-to-find books. Another vote for this being a hill to die on, your daughter needs to see some justice here. Not today, Hull. You don't teach respect by acting disrespectfully. Children are smart enough to see hypocrisy for what it is. Justice is banning the boy from the house. Stealing from the boy would only be revenge. Solving the issue would be dealing with the mom who lets this happen. File a complaint in the small claims court for the value of the books. Keep it up with everything he destroys. When Bio Dad is on the hook for paying all of his destructive behavior, he'll change his tune. Now that sounds like a plan. I couldn't imagine losing my books at the hands of a sibling, especially considering the book prices aren't exactly going down with time. Last story is titled, Am I the a-hole for not telling my ex and her boyfriend that they should act like the soccer game was life? I, male 25, have an 8-year-old son who loves soccer more than anything. He plays in a team, he plays with friends, and he even joins me and my friends on Saturday evenings. His mom wasn't in his life until he was 7. I don't know why she didn't want to be in his life, but I accepted it. I am saying this because till now, their relationship is rocky. His birthday was a week ago, and after he celebrated with his friends, I finally managed to get a whole day just for my son. Considering that I can't let him stay up till 1 a.m. to watch Copa America, I recorded the game of his favorite team, Colombia against Brazil, and we were ready to watch it on Saturday. A few friends of mine came with a Brazil flag and a Colombian flag, so that in case Colombia won, my son could laugh at my friends. Their idea. My ex and her boyfriend came too. No clue why she brought him, as we never invited him, nor did my son. We threw a few steaks on the grill, got ready, and started the game. Then the boyfriend of my ex wanted to bet on the game, searched up the stats, and noticed that at this point the game happened a few days ago. Instead of rationally thinking and playing along, he simply said Brazil won 2-1. I was too late, but still told him to shut up. My son went upstairs in his room and me and my friends wanted them to leave for what they did. I got a call later the day from my ex, saying that I should have told them this in advance. I simply hung up and ignored all the other calls. Am I the a-hole? Edit. My ex doesn't understand soccer, and her boyfriend wasn't invited. So I thought that I don't really need to tell her the game is recorded and not live. Who the hell places bets on a game at an 8-year-old's birthday party? Real winner, that guy. Never thought about that. And on top of that, for a sport he clearly doesn't follow, otherwise would not have needed to look up on his phone to find out the game was from 2 days before. Not the a-hole. It was obvious to anyone with a brain that the people in that room didn't know the results of the game yet. He spoiled it deliberately. You also didn't have the chance to pre-warm him since he wasn't invited. You're not the a-hole. You also didn't have the chance to pre-warm him since he wasn't invited. This point needs to be shouted loudly. Not the a-hole. The boyfriend wasn't invited, and common sense states that if it seems like no one knows the outcome, you keep your mouth shut. Not the a-hole. I feel so bad for your son. That was a really good idea you all had, and some prick ruined it. Your ex should have asked if she could bring him over, and given his lack of social awareness that he shouldn't have gone, it doesn't shock me that he's placing bets at a child's party. Yeah, but we ended up watching the Colombia versus Uruguay game, and fortunately Colombia won that one. Update. My stepdad turned my family against me. Original post. So let me start this off by saying I apologize for how long this may be. My dad passed when I was 15. Him and my mom weren't all that close by that time, so while it hit me hard, she wasn't as phased as you'd expect. I joined the military when I was 17, but in my first year out of the house, my mom remarried. I never really vibed with the guy, just had different personalities and such. He would often make snide remarks and tell me to man up about any inconvenience I'd be upset about. This led to spats between us, and I was often just as at fault as he was for these disagreements, though it never got too serious. I got medically discharged after a little under 5 years, and my mom and him said they'd be happy to have me back in the house. I told them it'd be brief, just until I got on my feet and got a job. I'd even offered to pay rent, to which they declined. About 3 days into being back home, my stepdad got alone with me, asked what he thought a fair rent would be. I was confused, but it was his house, so we came to an agreement, and I kept it from my mom, assuming he did not want her to know, as he never mentioned it around her. I never asked for anything from them, not out of spite. I just wanted to do things myself. He had a son from a previous marriage. Him and I didn't share many common interests or anything, but I never had any issues with him. I'd say we got along. The only thing is, he was given a lot from them. Paid for his schooling, paid for his car, paid for his living arrangements through college and even after. I was a little less than a year older than him, so we started college right after they married. But like I said, I didn't want or need help. But it felt lame that he'd get all that assistance and I was immediately asked for rent. But I digress. I moved out after 3 months and not long after, met a girl who I was crazy about, and we started dating. It was my first relationship. And I was over the moon the entire time, like in that early relationship haze, but it was just constant. I was very nervous to bring her home. My mom and I were very close, and I always worried she'd be very judgmental of the girl I'd bring home. My worries ended up being unwarranted though. They got along extremely well. My girlfriend does not have a family really. Long story. So my mom and stepdad became like that for her. Her and my mom hit it off extremely well, to the point they were hanging out just the two of them at times, and it made me extremely happy. My stepdad even really liked her, and I felt it brought us closer together, which isn't something I felt I wanted until we were. His dad abandoned his family growing up, and he put himself through school and got a nice high-paying job all by himself, which I had immense respect in him for. About a year in, I knew this was the girl I was going to marry. I told my mom and stepdad, and they both seemed extremely happy. She was practically part of the family already. My mom then gave me her engagement ring. My dad gave her, which she kept. The job I had didn't pay great, so I figured even if it wasn't the ring she'd always have, it would be a great placeholder. But when I proposed, my girlfriend told me it wasn't a placeholder, and she absolutely loved it. I was legitimately never happier in my life. We started wedding planning, and my mom and stepdad said they'd help take care of the finances. It was the first time they'd offered to help me financially, and it really meant a lot. Fast forward to about 3 months later, I got a call from my stepdad who said I needed to come over. Felt a bit ominous, but I went over there after work. When I got there, my mom, stepdad, stepbrother, and fiancé, I saw her on the couch and could tell she had been crying. I immediately thought someone had died and went to go sit next to her, when my stepdad stopped me. He started hitting me with accusations of me cheating on her for our entire relationship. I was puzzled and told everyone there I don't even text any women I'm not related to besides her. Apparently, some girl had gotten my fiancé's number and told her that we were sleeping together for over a year now, but she didn't know I was in a committed relationship. She sent her screenshots of alleged conversations and knew stuff about me that a random person wouldn't know. I, like a fool, couldn't see what was happening in front of me. I was stunned, saddened, and furious. I begged her from across the room to look at my phone and see I'd never done any of that. Her and my mother were both weeping and I started to cry. My stepdad called me every word he could think of and escorted me out of the house while telling me if he saw me on his property again, he'd call the police. I spent the next several weeks trying to contact them to no avail. Calls, texts, voicemails, every messaging app out there, nothing. After those weeks, I got a call from my stepdad who told me to stop trying to contact her and that I was never welcome in his house or around his family again. I tried to call my mother over this time to no avail as well. After about a month, all I got from anyone was a text from my mother saying how sad and disappointed she was. My mom didn't really have much family, so they always spent holidays with my stepdad's side. They all shunned me as well. I saw their Christmas pictures on Facebook with my ex-fiancé present and seemingly in good spirits. which crushed me. The only family I had that would talk to me at all was my dad's brother and his family. Despite that, even they all seemed wary of me too. The only one that I think truly believed me was my uncle. I don't think I'd have made it without him, honestly. He showed me what I'd been missing in fatherly love, and I've never been so grateful for anyone. About 6 months after it all, I moved away from the East Coast and settled out in California, needing to get away from it all. A little less than a year after I moved, I got a call from an area code from back home, which I rarely got anymore. I picked up, and it was my stepbrother, whom I promptly hung up on. He called me back and I ignored it, but it stuck with me all day. I decided that if he called back again, I'd pick up, which he did later that night. It was awkward at best. He told me my fiancée was really torn up for a long time. It took her nearly a year to even start looking again for a significant other, when I hadn't at all since it ended. A few months into her doing so, my stepdad encouraged him to ask her on a date, which he did. Things went okay for the first couple outings, but never really clicked apparently. He told my stepdad about that, and the idiot told him, "I didn't get rid of Opie for nothing. She's a great girl. You need to figure it out with her." I almost collapsed, and it was quickly replaced with anger. Apparently, he had gotten a girl who I didn't know to pose as someone I had an affair with and forged some message screenshots to have her sent to my fiancé. Stepbrother told me he'd said it to him about a month ago, and he didn't know what to do. Apparently, it bothered him enough that he couldn't just sit on the info anymore, so he told me and said he was going to tell my mom and fiancé the next day. He called me first as a courtesy, so he knew what to say to them regarding me. I told him where I was and that I'd appreciate it if they didn't immediately contact me, so I had some time to digest it all. That was last Tuesday. I just texted him and told him I was ready to talk to them if they wanted to, and that they could call me tomorrow. I really don't know what I'm gonna say, or them for that matter. I expect some tears and a good number of apologies among other things. I don't really know if I'm ready to give forgiveness or anything like that. The only person I've told so far is my uncle, who I've asked to keep it to himself. Sorry again for how long this was. My therapist just had picked the wrong week to go on vacation and I needed to vent. Now for the top advice before reading the updates. Your stepfather is a truly awful, insecure, small-minded man. Just my 2 cents, but you should always stay no contact with him. He will never be on your side. You might be able to understand why ex-fiancé believed what she did, and even forgive her, but that does not mean you should re-establish any type of relationship. That boat sailed when she didn't believe you, or give you a chance to prove your innocence. There are plenty of other women out there for you to meet, who aren't easily manipulated, or dragging the baggage of faithlessness with them. So sorry for all the pain this has caused. But as long as your stepfather is in the picture, your own life will be much happier without any of them in it. Wow, man. This sure is a lot for you to process. I'm glad everyone found out the truth now, and you have every right to take your time to rebuild the relationships that were destroyed, if that's what you want to do. I highly suggest you start therapy too, and we would love to hear from you again. Started therapy after moving last year and most definitely have benefited from it. Now for the first update. Sorry for the delay, busy day at work and obviously a lot of other stuff on my mind. My stepbrother called me this morning and told me exactly what happened this past week. So apparently, what my stepfather said wasn't exactly what he told me. He elaborated more and said he was very careful with his words so as to not incriminate himself. Per him, heavily and very clearly implying what he did without directly saying what he did. Thing about my stepbrother is, he's much smarter than me. Instead of just walking to my mother and fiancé with that and getting into a shouting match with his dad, he took a different course that I wouldn't have thought of. He got a hold of my ex's phone and found a girl. Said it took him forever to backtrack it. He gave her a call and got her to meet him out in public. And that's where it all came to head. She was a Tinder match with my stepfather, which I think pretty clearly indicates that he had been sleeping around on my mom. That irritated me even more for obvious reasons. This girl alleges they did not sleep together. However, whether that is the truth did not matter to me. What does is my stepbrother talked to her and pulled on her heartstrings with his story and all that had happened. For the record, she clearly knew what she was doing. Maybe the time at hearing what had happened to me really shook her up, but again, it doesn't matter to me. She told him what happened. $1,000 for a phone call. That was the deal. He told her what to say and supplied the pictures of evidence. She made a call and that was that. My stepbrother asked her if she could tell my mother and ex, and even offered to pay her again for the record. She agreed to do it for free, and that happened on yesterday. My stepfather is on a business trip until Wednesday, so it was the four of them there. She came in and spilled it all to my mom and ex. Stepbrother said a tear started almost immediately from all three of them. After everything, he told them I was in California and that he'd tell them when I wanted to be contacted. This was before I texted him. A little backstory for you guys to try to understand some stuff about my mother and ex-fiancé. And this is in no way defending their actions, just to help some folks understand. My mother and I were inseparable after my dad passed. We were each other's rock. When I turned 16, I began to drink to kind of dull it all a bit. I told my mom we'd spent New Year's together the year I was 16, but ended up out with my friends drunk as all hell. I got a text from my mom who spent the night alone at home, and that was when we were never quite the same. She sent me a text about how sad she was all alone, and I felt like really bad over it. I stopped drinking that day until after everything went to hell. She's the type of person to always need someone. She can't handle being alone. I think when her and my dad's love began to fade, I feel that void. And when I was growing and ended up leaving home, my stepfather filled that void. Then my ex. As I said earlier, she doesn't have a family really. She had some real trust issues due to this, along with some really nasty past relationships. Despite this, she never would talk badly about past boyfriends, which I really admired. One was physically abusive, and I consider that an obvious exception. I, despite being debilitatingly shy, have been often told that I'm cute, especially by younger girls, meaning younger than me, not children. I never liked that title, as it's not very masculine, but got over it and learned to appreciate my boyish face and how often I would blush. My fiancé is just shy of 3 years older than me. I've always preferred older girls, had never given much time or thought to the girls who seemingly liked me because they were 18 to 20. This didn't stop the attention which upset my fiancé. She'd often ask why I wasn't interested in these girls, why I didn't leave her for someone younger and prettier, etc. I always found her extremely attractive, significantly more attractive than me honestly, and would always reiterate that to her, and that I never cared about any other girl. Okay, sorry to get off track. That again I hope brings a little insight to why I think they did what they did and believed what they believed. Again, this is not an excuse for them, nor am I really all that understanding personally. At the end of the call with my brother, he said they both wanted to call today, and I told him that'd be fine, so I sat and waited. By about 3 p.m., I was a little confused. I started to wonder if he'd made it all up to mess with me. It really worried me honestly. Then I got a text from him asking if I was all good, and I said yeah, and asked if they were actually planning on calling today. He said they'd been trying for the last few hours. I'd blocked them both when I moved out west and forgotten. Why I didn't block him, I don't know. I'm thankful I didn't though. So I unblocked them both and got a call from my mom about 10 minutes later. First thing she said was I sounded different. I almost hung up right then. Took all I had to just say, yeah. She broke down immediately after that. I really thought I'd feel more. I'd be lying if I said I felt nothing. But the pain of it all just took hold of me more than her words. She asked if I'd gotten her texts. I said no. I guess she'd been trying to text over the last year, but I had her number blocked. If she really wanted to reach me, she could have. Maybe that's a little crappy, but I know it's true. I pretty much told her that I'd be willing to build some semblance of a relationship back with time, and she was happy with that. She also told me she was getting all her necessities out of the house before my stepfather got home, and she'd be filing for divorce immediately. I believe her too. She may be a poor excuse for a mother in my eyes, but she's never been someone to take half measures. I really wish I could be there to see that prick's face when he comes back to an empty home. My ex got the phone next and did the same tearful apologies my mom did. I felt a little more with her. I actually tried to get her to think and remember how many times I told her I'd never do that to her and how much I loved her, and she was beside herself. And to be honest, I'm glad. We talked for about half an hour and I really thought it was pleasant. Even though I told myself for over a year now that it would never happen again, thought there could still be something to us. She told me she still had a ring and it's made me upset, and just told her to give it to my mom, cause it didn't belong to either of us anymore. I could tell that really crushed her, and selfishly I wanted it too. She asked if she could call/text me. I told her it's fine, but to not expect a prompt response either way, which she understood. Pretty much gave her the same ultimatum as my mom, though I said any chances of us having a future relationship were very slim, which she said she understood too. I talked to my brother last and thanked him for everything he'd done. He was helping my mom get her stuff out of his father's house, apologized for all that happened, and told me he was going to go tell the rest of the family everything as well. Them, I have no connection to and won't say a word to, I don't imagine. Except my stepdad's mother, oldest person in either of the families, and she wished me a happy birthday and Merry Christmas over the last year. Maybe she was old enough that she doesn't care. Maybe she felt bad, but I'll talk to her odd as it is. Sorry for all the rambling. I fly home for my uncle's 60th birthday the first week of March. It'll be my first time home since I moved out here. I'll definitely plan on seeing my brother as well. I'm not adverse to seeing my mom and ex, but I've made it clear to them that I've got a lot of healing to do, and so do they. If anything further happens, I'll update again. Maybe after the trip home, but that looks like it for the time being. Also, this is kinda the last social media I have. I haven't been on here super often in the last year for the reasons I'm sure you could guess. I truly haven't seen any similar stories to mine that have been referenced in the comments, though I'd like to if you can find them. Thank you, everyone. Second update. I got a call from a number back home. I deleted most of my numbers a while ago from anyone I wasn't talking with. I picked up and it was my stepfather. He said hello and I hung up, then blocked the number. I immediately called my mom, fiancé, and brother. They're all safe and not around him. Mom is in a hotel that he doesn't know about. Fiancé and brother are at their own residences, and both say they feel adequately protected. He is not by any indication a violent man, but better safe than sorry. My brother said he got a call from him this morning when he got home after my mom wasn't there and wouldn't answer. Brother just told him what happened and not to contact any of them. Not sure how long he sat there, but he called me around 3 p.m. Pacific. Then about an hour ago, I got a message from a different number saying we need to talk. I assume that's him, and I haven't responded. That's the latest. Third update. Stepdad's mother called me. Had her number saved because of what I previously stated. Was a bit worried it may have been him trying to gather some info or something. It wasn't. She's a very sweet lady who did not have to be nice to me in any way, but has shown me compassion. She was very nice and wished me well while also apologizing on behalf of the family. I thanked her and wished her the best too. Shocking it came from that woman. Am I the a-hole for telling my father to live with his choices? I, 23 male, am the oldest of 3. My younger sisters are 20 and 18. When I was 10, our father left our mom when she got sick. It really upset the family because it told us having a sick spouse wasn't something he could cope with, and it would have ended their marriage anyway. Our mom got better, and he told us it was because he left. He and I got into a huge fight about it because I knew it was BS. A spouse leaving you doesn't mean you'll beat cancer. A couple of years after he left our mom, he remarried. Then when my father's wife was 5 months pregnant, we found out mom's cancer was back. It progressed quickly and she passed away 4 months later. The day before she died, our father's wife went into labor. He fought with us in staying with our mom because he wanted us with him. But he didn't want to leave his wife and missed the birth of their child. But we wanted to be with our mom, not her. I was 14 at the time. Our father showed up 6 hours after our mom died and told us it was time to come home, that there was a party we needed to be ready for the next day. His choices led us not wanting to live with him, and we all got out as soon as we could, much to his annoyance. My youngest sister leaving was the final straw for him, and he told me we had no right to walk away from our family, from our parents, and younger siblings. I told him his wife was not our parent, and if he wanted to blame something, he should blame himself. And the choice is made. That is choosing to leave our mom because she was sick, then lie about him being the reason she got better, and then choosing to fight us on leaving our mom when she was dying because he didn't want to leave his wife, and ultimately not being there for us during that, is why we're here. And to say we shouldn't abandon him might be how he feels, but we feel very different. He told me she wouldn't have survived as long if he hadn't left her. I asked him why it wasn't his fault she died then, that if he could cure her once, why not again? That we both know it's bullcrap. Now, it's not just him that thinks I was an aid to him in that conversation. So do some of my aunts and uncles on that side. They always figured we were too hard on him for his choices, and that we should have embraced the new instead of being angry over the old. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. You are absolutely not the a-hole. OP, please. Good lord. Please don't listen to your dad and some of those aunts and uncles. Your dad is a master manipulator. He's the opposite of support while you guys went through something so traumatic. Well done on you and your siblings pulling through.
He is a manipulator, but he doesn't sound like a master, as it hasn't worked on his children. Death and sickness is great for showing families' true colors. I have so many family members who whine but family when trying to guilt you into helping them in some way or putting up with their bull. But when the stuff hits the fan, it's nothing but crickets on their end. To hell with those people. Not they all so much. Not they all. Bet the guy's looking for a babysitter for the younger sibs. As for the rest of that side of the family, I would cut them off too. Regardless of whether dad's a-holishness is by nature or nurture, they probably share it as well. Not they all. What? He abandoned his 3 children with a sick mom, then expected his abandoned kids to leave their dying mother? I say WTF again. What a selfish douche knuckle. You are so clearly not a-hole, and your random extended family members criticizing your choices are most likely just saying crap like that to relieve their personal feelings of guilt and shame. They had years to help out and clearly didn't, so now they're feeling like a-holes. Keep on going the way you're going. You know you're right, and Reddit shall reconfirm. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for reacting badly on my sister-in-law when my nephew called me Dad? I, 29 male, not sure if I maybe overreacted in this situation, but here it goes. My brother passed away in a boat accident, and sometime after that, my sister-in-law, his wife, found out she was pregnant with her first child. It was hard for her navigating her grief while pregnant, dealing with the fact that my brother will never know his son, and on top of all that, the reality of now being a single mom. My parents live in another country, and she doesn't talk to her folks much. So I started coming around a lot while she was pregnant. Bring her food, help with baby stuff and such. I was grieving too. It needed a company and it felt good knowing that I was helping out. After my nephew Charlie was born, I've been around way more, and he's become the most important person in my life and I love him. I still help out my sister-in-law with whatever she needs for him. Clothes, money, toys, baby food, you name it. Charlie's over a year old and is already talking. One that obviously caught me by surprise is when he said Dada to me when I came over yesterday morning. And I corrected him saying, no, uncle. But I don't know. Guess he was stubborn. I confronted my sister-in-law on it, and she says they were reading a book together, and he got it in his head that I'm his Dada. Not sure about that, but throughout the rest of the visit he'd keep calling me that, and it would twist something in me. And sister-in-law wasn't doing anything to correct him. In fact, she'd encourage it. After she put him down for a nap, she asked me what's so wrong about him calling me that, and I sort of lost my temper. Didn't yell or anything, but what I said was, because I'm not his dad. And I'm not gonna disrespect my brother like that. So why would you? My sister-in-law looked like she wanted to cry, and I decided to end the visit there. In my drive back, I got a text from her. She told me sorry for thinking I'd feel happy to call me that, and she'll make sure he won't do it again. That I just didn't have to be mean by throwing the death of my brother at her face. I've had some time to think. It was an emotional moment for me, so I'm not sure if maybe that way I reacted made me an a-hole. Especially because I made her cry. Am I the a-hole? No a-holes here. It's a tough situation and you are both getting through it best you can. Props to you for stepping up. No a-holes here. But Opie, you need to sit down and think about the long run here. What role do you want in your nephew's life moving forward? Are you dating anyone? What will your partner think, when you get serious with one, about your relationship with your nephew? Will you step back from your relationship with your nephew when you have children of your own? Will his mother pull him back from his relationship with you when she finds a new partner? You need to figure out what you want, and what you're willing to do and be to this child. Then you need to sit down with your sister-in-law and clarify what she wants and expects as well. Do it now because your nephew is old enough to express an opinion so you can't fudge it anymore. No a-holes here. I would just explain to her that he caught you off guard, and you reacted poorly to the situation because you get emotional. It happens. And it sounds like everyone involved really love your brother. Not an a-hole. I don't think it's healthy that your sister-in-law was encouraging your nephew to call you Dada. I think you need to have a discussion reminding her that your intentions are to be a good uncle to Charlie, not to replace your brother as a father or a husband. I hope I'm wrong, but it is possible that her grief is making her misinterpret your support and see it as something more. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not telling my older sister-in-law my son's name before he's born? My husband has 2 sisters. Jane is older and Emma's younger. He and I are expecting our second baby, and we already have his name decided. Jane knows this because she saw my husband pick up the custom name sticker we got for the nursery, and now she's dying to know the name. She asked my husband, and he told her we'd reveal all when baby's here. Then she came to me and asked me, but I said no to giving her the name. The reason? When Emma had her son, she used the name Emma had mentioned when she was 6 months pregnant. Jane was also pregnant, and a couple of months ahead of Emma, and when Jane's son was born, she used the name Emma had chosen. Same first and middle name and also last. Emma ended up changing her son's name, and it really upset her. When my husband and I had our daughter, Jane went nuts over her name. She told us we had amazing taste, then joked that she wished she had a girl to use it on. My husband told her that wouldn't work anymore since we already had a child with a name. She just rolled her eyes at his response. Jane's due any day now with another baby, and I suspect she would use our son's name if we told her now. But she thinks I'm being too uptight, and should share the name since it's not a big deal, and can give her the chance to get something extra special for our son. I told her she doesn't need to get him anything, that anything she does want to buy can be purchased when he's here. Now she is really mad. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Also, troll her and tell her a false name. Okay, but keep it a secret. Aloysius Bertrand Smith. She won't even know it's fake because either 1, you can say you changed your mind, or 2, she took the name so you would have to change it anyway. Imagine sister-in-law's kid ending up with a super weird name because sister-in-law stole the fake baby name. Poor kid has to go through life with a name like Giuseppe Agamemnon Smith because his mom couldn't come up with the name herself. Not an a-hole. The fact she stole her sister's child name is wild. I would not tell her either. Sounds like she may be digging for another name to steal. That's my theory, especially given her reaction to my daughter's name and her using the name her sister had chosen. Not an a-hole. You need to update when you tell her a fake name. Let her steal it. And when she finds out your son has a way better name in the future, how mad she gets at you. She's fishing your son's name. Keep that door closed. Accidentally say it's when he's kicking you. Ouch! Thomas Gray, that hurts. Then look around as if you're making sure no one heard you say it. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for kicking a guest out of the house? Just for context, my girlfriend, 24 female, is the breadwinner in our household. I don't really make that much, but she has a stable job and her parents are loaded. So whenever it comes to big purchases, like our first home and car, etc., she handles it. I usually just try to buy the smaller necessities like household utilities and groceries. Obviously, I get teased and hassled about it from people we know once in a while. I really don't appreciate when this happens, and I've talked to my girlfriend about how she feels about these things. She told me what I do is enough for her, and the only thing that matters is that we are happy. There's a friend of hers who literally just won't shut up about me being the housewife, her exact words. She always passive-aggressively makes remarks about my income, and things about a man should care for his girlfriend. Since she usually does this in front of other people, I don't say anything because I hate making scenes in public, so I usually stay silent. We had a small get-together with some of me and my girlfriend's friends, and she was invited. The first thing she commented on was the decor in our house. She then smirked and asked if I was the one who paid for it or my girlfriend. My girlfriend gave me this look like, I'm sorry, and that really just set me off. After everyone came in, I asked her to come to the front door. When we got there, I asked her to put on her shoes. She asked where we were going, and I told her she was leaving because I'm not dealing with her stupid bull right now. She said it's not up to me since I didn't pay for the house, and I told her I would make sure she would have zero fun if she decided to stay. She said her boyfriend dropped her off and that she didn't have a ride, and I told her to go Uber or something. She left and some people started asking me where she was. I just said she had to go because something came up. But my girlfriend's friends didn't take the story because they overheard what she had said to me and guessed that I kicked her out. I just told them what happened, and they started berating me for kicking her out over nothing, and that if I was a real man, the things she said shouldn't bother me. What hell does that even mean? My girlfriend is indifferent to the situation, but my girlfriend's friends don't seem to understand that it's freaking annoying to have to deal with that every time I see her. I feel conflicted, and maybe I shouldn't have kicked her out. Am I the a-hole? Not today, home. But I'm concerned your girlfriend is only indifferent instead of being on your side. Opie, you really need to stand up for yourself in a more direct approach. The way you handled things with your slime manner backfired. I'm not calling you an a-hole, but kicking her out and giving everyone else a different story was not making you look good. It gave her the opportunity to control the narrative, not that you have anything to prove to anyone. Additionally, you should have stopped her insults from the get-go. I understand it's challenging to do so in a group setting, but that seems humiliating to just take it in front of others. Just say it's rude and tell her to stop in front of everyone. Not today, home, but your girlfriend is. Nobody should be disrespected by guests in their own home. Girlfriend should have shut this down the first time it happened. Your masculinity is not at issue. Your dignity and privacy are. Girlfriend should not allow her friends to mistreat the man she loves. Not today, home. I think you handled it beautifully, right down to saying she had to go. You may not have a lot of money, but you have a ton more class than anyone else in the story. I'm sorry that your girlfriend doesn't actively help you to remedy the situation. To be fair to her, these are all her childhood friends, and she has told me before that they are basically family. I especially wouldn't take that crap from family either. If my own mother said something insulting to my significant other, she'd be heading home. Last story is titled, Am I the a-hole for kicking out my significant other for being replaced on vacation? I, 33 female, have been with my boyfriend, 55 male, for 3 years, Carl, and he has always been mortified by our age gap. Carl is worried that he will be seen as a sad old man, or that people will think I'm a gold digger. I, on the other hand, am unbothered. We both work in finance, and although Carl makes more than me, I make 6-figure salary and I'm self-supporting. He is currently staying with me for a couple of weeks as he lives a couple of states away. He has his own place, but we usually stay together 1 week a month minimum. Until the last 6 months or so, Carl refused to introduce me to anyone he knew, including his teenage/adult children, but I tolerated it because I assumed he was just cautious and would come around in the long run. Recently, a friend of his, George, 50s male, who I have worked with for the past 4 years and therefore know fairly well, had a couple of friends drop out of a holiday he had booked last year, a villa in Antigua, and asked if Carl wanted to go. As part of his invite, George told Carl he could bring a friend. It's important to note at this point that George is one of the few people that Carl has actually confided in about our long-term relationship. We have met for supper before as a couple, so I am 99% sure George was referring to me. Carl asked me if I wanted to go, and I was thrilled, as I felt like it was a major turning point in our relationship and that he was finally publicly acknowledging me. The next day, Carl calls me and tells me that he'd spoken to George, and it transpired that George wasn't bringing friends, as Carl had thought, but instead his 5 adult children, 20s, plus their boyfriends/girlfriends. Carl decided that this wouldn't be my scene, and informed me that he'd ask his son Ed, 18 male, to go instead of me. I was incandescent and told him to get the hell out. He has been texting me since, telling me I'm blowing it out of proportion, and that I wouldn't enjoy it anyway, as it is mostly kids, who are 5 years younger than me. So, am I the a-hole for kicking him out for being disinvited from the holiday? Edit. Carl and I started dating not long after his divorce, which is why he was initially reluctant to introduce me. As far as I know, there are no skeletons in Carl's closet. Not the a-hole. Blowing out of proportion? You know what's out of proportion? A 55-year-old guy who is so insecure and scared for the judgment of others, so he tries to hide his girlfriend for 3 years. Are you sure he is not cheating or something? I think he lacks a lot of commitment. He lives out of town. They see each other 1 week each month. They've been dating for 3 years, and he refuses to acknowledge her to his family and friends. Sounds like dude already has a family, and Opie isn't it? Jesus, Opie. Why would you put up with this? Seriously. He's so ashamed if you keeps you secret, and you happily go along with it. For 3 years? Damn, where's your self-esteem? Your pride? I'm thinking that divorce never actually happened, and Opie is an unknowing side piece. Why are you dating someone who's ashamed of you? You're the a-hole for wasting your time with someone that is embarrassed to be dating you. 3 years you've been his dirty little secret. Get some self-respect.